Hey, how's it going, everybody? Michael Lamar here from Wall Street IO with a quick little update around Apple's payday cycle. We're also going to cover the SPY real quickly today as well and kind of get a broader, bigger zoomed out view of both the SPY and Apple today. Now, what I want everyone to know is that we're still in a bearish payday cycle for Apple, and what that means, these red bars are basically still showing bearish trend. Now, what I want to highlight real quickly is that on Thursday we actually formed this doji payday cycle bar, right? And then Friday we broke below it. Now, normally when this happens, it means that we've now completed one bearish cycle and have started another one on Friday. Now you can see the last one lasted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. It's pretty common. About 5 or 6 days is very common. This new one down can sometimes mean that it's going to last another few days. Let me show you an example. A couple months ago, we had this bearish payday cycle, again, lasted about 5 or 6 days. And then we had the doji, and then we broke down below the doji, and it lasted a few more days after that. We did what's called a double cycle, or as some people call it, a super cycle. We had one bearish cycle down, and then we had a second one down. We also have done them to the upside, right? We've had that to the upside. Here's one bullish cycle, and then a second one. As you can see, a lot of times the second one isn't always as long as the first. Now, in this case, a lot of people may think that we're going into a double bearish payday cycle, but I'm wondering if we can actually hold this 160 area. I think especially with earnings coming up, it's more likely that we actually end this second cycle early and just kind of base sideways between 160 and 165, right? And if you kind of look at this longer term trend, let me kind of highlight this for you. Here's Apple since we kind of bounced off this really nice longer term rounded bottom. Let's go ahead and take a look. You can actually see we have a pretty modest uptrend there. And if you think about it, the last 4 or 5 months, all the way going back to November here, we've basically time corrected sideways. And a lot of times these time corrections will allow for a longer term pop. Now, the big question on everybody's mind is, because we have earnings coming up, the question is, are we going to have a good earnings call? Are we going to beat expectations, and are we going to have positive guidance? What's going on with iPhone sales? There's a lot of concern around that right now. If I flip back from payday cycle to candlestick here, you can see that this last couple weeks in Apple has been kind of dodgy. I mean, we had a nice cycle up and then two big gaps down. The gaps that we had here and here basically happened on the back of some news around some iPhone sales that were decreasing. Okay, so if we get bad numbers or any kind of like bad news around guidance around iPhone, that could actually have us break this trend line to the downside. If all things are good and we're still seeing Apple operating at full speed ahead, this could actually be a longer term bottom here where we actually cycle higher. Okay, so a couple things to think about right there. Now, I want to jump to the SPY for you real quickly because a little while ago we actually published a blog video called is it a problem when the best case scenario is sideways? And I know a lot of people were looking for the market to recover really quickly from this big sell-off, and I kind of been telling everybody it feels like we're going sideways. And if you look at what the SPY is doing right now, I'll actually flip to a payday cycle chart and make it easier to see. We're basically sideways, folks. We're still sideways. Okay, we have a really, really nice broad range. And if you think about it, we're kind of starting to form a little bit of a pennant, right? We have this high and it comes down. We have a little bit of a triangle. And then we have this low that comes down. So we're starting to compress. The VIX is starting to move down a little bit. Now, I want you to think of it like this. The market has been really, really strong going all the way back, to 2008, 2009 when it bounced. Every time we've had fear or concern around the broad market, we would generally go sideways. Now, during those sideways times, we do have some volatility. You could see it happened here, right? This was some pretty big volatility back here, right? But the bigger term perspective, it was kind of more like sideways action, right? It just time corrected. And while the ranges might have been extreme, ultimately we finished out and ended up breaking to the upside. Now, that took a couple years to happen, but we eventually broke up and out. So right now, while everybody's kind of panicking, I just want to remind you that from a technical perspective, we're still just going sideways. And as long as this 255 holds right here, we don't break too far below it, I would say to 250, then the sideways trend that we're seeing now is very likely going to end up back into an uptrend in the very long-term thing, right? Because that's just the overall trend of the market right now. Now, again, I just wanted to say that because A lot of people are panicking and everything like that, and I just don't think it's time to do that yet because the broad market is really just coiling and it's going sideways. And as long as this longer term support holds, I think the sideways move, even if it lasts a year or more, is ultimately still bullish because we're not entering a downtrend yet. We're still just kind of sideways. So anyways, I wanted to kind of uh, let everybody know what I was thinking about it, and I hope this helps. We got earnings coming up again with Apple this week. So what I want you to do is in the comments right below, let me know what you think about two things. First one is, do you think it's a problem around iPhones? Do you think that there's going to be any bad guidance around iPhone sales or decreasing iPhone sales? Secondly, if you can, let me know what you think. What's going to happen this coming week with Apple? Are we going to make a big pivot here and have a gap higher like a lot of the other tech stocks have been doing? Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, all gap higher? Or is this going to be some bad news and we're going to gap lower and potentially break this trend line? I have my thoughts, but I would love to hear from you. So go ahead and write in the comments right below this video. This is Michael Lamar, and I'll see you on the inside.